All right, so there's a new AI law coming out of South Korea, and it's about to make some serious waves. If you're building anything with AI, you're gonna want to lean in for this. Welcome to The Explainer, where today we're demystifying South Korea's new AI Basic Act and what it actually means for you. Let's dive in.
Okay, so the first thing you're probably hearing is all this hype, right? Headlines screaming regulation bomb and comparing it to the EU's super strict AI Act. But here's the reality. That's not really what's happening. When you actually look at the law, it's got a totally different DNA. It's built to be more of a launch pad for the AI industry, you know? Think guardrails, not roadblocks. All right, here's our game plan for today. We're going to look at what this law is really about. Then we'll hit the one rule that pretty much everyone needs to know. After that, we'll get into the more serious stuff for high-impact AI, and then the rules for the really big players. We'll talk about what this means for your business, the costs, and the opportunities. And I'll leave you with a super clear action plan you can use, like tomorrow.
Okay, first up, let's get into the DNA of this new rulebook. It's kind of got a dual personality, but trust me, it definitely plays favorites. You know, you don't even have to read the whole thing to get the vibe. Just look at how it's structured. The lion's share of the articles, like a big chunk of the law, is all about promotion. We're talking R&D, helping startups, data centers, finding talent, the whole 9 yards. And the actual rules, the regulations, they're tucked into this much smaller section. That tells you everything you need to know, right? This is an industry-first law. The priority is crystal clear: growth. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, hey, I'm not in Korea, so I can just tune this out. Nope, you really can't. This law has what they call extraterritorial reach, which is just a fancy way of saying, if you have users in Korea, guess what? This applies to you. End of story. All right, let's get to what's probably the most important part for, I'd say, almost everyone listening. This is your first compliance hurdle, the one rule that catches pretty much everybody in its net. I mean it. If you're using generative AI in any way, whether it's the core of your app, a feature on your platform, whatever, this section is for you. This is your top priority. So it all boils down to one specific rule, Article 31. And the core idea here is incredibly simple. It's just transparency. Before you worry about complicated risk assessments, your number one job is just to let people know they're dealing with AI. And it breaks down into 3 really basic steps. Step 1, just tell your users upfront, hey, this service uses AI. Step 2, label the stuff the AI makes, whether it's text, images, whatever, put a label on it. And step 3, if you're dealing with deepfakes or stuff that looks super realistic, you've got to use an even stronger, clearer warning. That's pretty much it. And I love this quote because it just nails the point. For most startups, your first compliance document isn't going to be some massive, scary risk report. It's literally just the answer to the question, did you tell your users this is AI? If you can say yes to that, you are well on your way. Okay, so that was level 1. Now let's talk about when the rules get a little more serious. This is the next tier of compliance, and it kicks in when AI starts making decisions in some pretty sensitive areas. And this is super important. This next part is not for everyone. We're talking about very specific sectors where an AI's decision can have a huge impact on someone's life. You know, their rights or their safety. So what does high impact actually mean? Well, the law is pretty clear. We're talking about things like healthcare and medical devices, or AI that helps decide on hiring or loan applications. Also things like energy grids, transportation, and even student evaluations. If you're playing in one of these sandboxes, yeah, the rules are definitely tougher. But, and this is a huge but, there's a really clever exception baked right into the law. It's all about the human in the loop. Basically, if your AI is just an assistant making a recommendation and a real person makes the final meaningful decision, your regulatory load gets way, way lighter. It's a clear signal that they see human oversight as a key safety feature. Now, if your system is in that high-impact zone and it's making the calls on its own, then yeah, you've got more homework. You've got to have a risk management plan, you have to prove that a human can step in, and you need to document that process. You've got to be able to explain your AI's decisions, and the big one, document everything. Okay, so we've covered the basics and the high-impact stuff. Now let's talk about the big players. This is where we get to the rules for the absolute frontier models and massive global platforms. Right, Article 32. This one is for a very, very specific audience. This has nothing to do with building an app using an API from a big company. No, this is aimed directly at the handful of companies that are actually building those massive, high-performance frontier models. If that's you, then get ready for some serious safety testing and reporting requirements.
And there's one more thing for the big fish. If you're a global platform and you hit some pretty big milestones in Korea, we're talking massive revenue numbers or over 1 million daily active users there, then you've got to appoint a domestic representative, basically someone on the ground in Korea to be your point person for compliance.
So let's step back for a second. What does all this actually mean for your business? Because this is about more than just dodging a legal headache. There's a real cost, but also a real opportunity here. And the timeline here is pretty reasonable. The law's on the books, but they're giving everyone at least a 1-year grace period. For a while, it's just going to be about guidance and support. The real enforcement with actual fines doesn't even start until 2027 or later. What does that mean for you? It means right now is the absolute best and cheapest time to get this sorted.
But here's a fascinating twist. Think about it. This law actually creates a whole new market. Suddenly, every company using AI needs solutions for this stuff. Tools for watermarking, for labeling content, for creating these impact assessments. A whole new industry of compliance as a service is literally being born out of this. All right, let's land the plane. I want to give you a simple, practical action plan that you can take back to your team, like this afternoon.
So here's your checklist. If you're using any kind of Gen AI, your top priority is to nail down your notification and labeling strategy. How are you going to do it? Where's it going to go? If you're in hiring or finance, start documenting that human oversight process now. If you're a huge global platform, it's time to run the numbers and see if you need a rep in Korea. And for anyone selling to the public sector, you're going to want to have an impact assessment template ready to go. And that really brings us to the big question, the one I want to leave you with. As builders, you have a choice. You can look at all of this as just a legal cost, another boring box to tick, or you could see it as something else entirely. Is this an opportunity to build trust with your users? A way to stand out from the competition? Could compliance actually be your next killer product feature?